You've heard that saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? That little phrase kept running through my head as I pulled into the parking spot in front of the tiny one-bedroom apartment I shared with my wife, Alara. Our marriage, I wondered, was it starting to feel like a pile of rotten lemons? Or was I just overthinking again? With a sigh, I climbed out of the car, grabbed the mail, and headed inside. Same as always. Bills, junk ads, and envelopes addressed to occupant. It was the usual pile, but it still drained me. Actually, I was already running on empty. 16-hour shifts, 4 days a week will do that to you. And even on my so-called day off, I was hustling at the fast food joint down the road. The grind was exhausting, sure, but it felt necessary. We had bills to pay, a future to save for, and a dream of owning a house someday. Plus, with our 5th wedding anniversary right around the corner, I wanted to plan something special for Alara. She did her fair share too, keeping the house in order and working at a travel agency. The pay wasn't amazing, but she made it work. Meanwhile, my main gig was 40 hours a week in customer service. Endless calls, angry complaints, and processing orders. It was dull work but came with decent pay and great benefits. I earned $18 an hour, plus commissions that usually ended up outpacing my regular wages. Twice a year, there was a company performance bonus too. Then there was my second job, fast food. Not exactly glamorous, but it gave me a break from the monotony of customer service. I'd been juggling these 2 jobs for almost 2 years now, and the strain was starting to catch up with me. The silver lining? Our finances were finally looking good. I was bringing in over $7,000 a month before taxes, and we'd managed to save up a nice little nest egg for a down payment on a house. My plan was to drop the second job once we were in the clear. After our upcoming anniversary cruise, I figured it would be the perfect time to sit down and reevaluate everything. Alara had been handling the bills for the past year, and from what I could tell, she was doing fine. In fact, she'd even scored us an incredible deal on a 5-day Caribbean cruise through her job. I decided to splurge and upgrade to a suite with a balcony and an ocean view. It would be worth every penny to finally have some uninterrupted time together. We'd both arranged to take our vacation at the same time and planned to leave right after work tomorrow, Friday. I was looking forward to it more than I could put into words. As I climbed the stairs to our apartment, I was already mentally clocking out. But the moment I opened the door, I was greeted by silence. The place was pitch black, except for the soft tick of the clock on the wall. Strange. Alara hadn't mentioned she'd be out. I dropped the mail on the table, flipped on the light, and took a quick look around. The apartment was spotless, just as clean and tidy as always. Still, something about it felt off. Alara? I'm home, I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. No answer. The kitchen was empty, and there wasn't a plate of dinner waiting for me in the fridge, which was unusual. On nights when I worked late, she always made sure to leave me something. Feeling uneasy, I headed to the bedroom. The bed was perfectly made, but there was no sign of her. She was nowhere to be found. Feeling a knot tightening in my chest, I pulled out my phone and dialed her number. It went straight to voicemail. Alara, it's Spencer. Hey, where are you? I'm at the apartment. Call me back. I hung up and followed up with a text. Are you okay? Let me know where you are. No response. As I paced the bedroom, something felt off. I glanced at the closet and noticed gaps where her clothes should have been. My heart sank. I flung open her dresser drawers. Same thing, half empty. I rushed to the bathroom, hoping for some explanation, but her toiletries were gone too. My chest was pounding now. Had she left me? Then I saw it. An envelope, sitting on the bathroom counter, addressed to me in her handwriting. It looked shaky, rushed. I snatched it up and carried it to the living room, bracing myself as I sat down. The letter didn't start with, Dear Spencer. It simply said, Spencer. Ominous. Cold. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. She got straight to the point. She said she knew this would be hard for me to understand, that she expected me to be angry, and that she was sorry for what she was about to say. Alara confessed she'd been having an affair for months. My stomach dropped. She was now with her lover, on the cruise we had planned for our anniversary. The very trip I had upgraded to a suite as a surprise. She mentioned how we'd talked about having kids, but said she didn't want children with me. She said I was a hard worker, a good provider, and I'd make a wonderful father, just not to her kids. Her words turned cruel as she admitted she'd stopped using contraception at her lover's request. He wanted to be the one to get her pregnant, and she was ready to start a family with him. My mind raced. This had to be some kind of twisted joke. She apologized for the coldness of her words but insisted her lover, Jasper, was a good man in every way. According to her, everyone at work knew about their relationship and even supported her decision to leave me for him. She wrote that her colleagues thought I'd be a great father to the kids she planned to have with Jasper. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Alara admitted she'd fallen in love with Jasper, but described it as a different kind of love than what she felt for me. She said her feelings for me were more like those for a sibling or close friend. Despite the betrayal, she didn't want a divorce. She suggested we stay married so our combined insurance could cover her pregnancies, and she expected me to help raise Jasper's children. The audacity. She went on to outline her new arrangement. Jasper would be spending nights at our home, and she suggested I find somewhere else to stay on those nights. Maybe I could get a third job to stay busy while they were together. Alara declared that our intimate relationship was over, stating that Jasper insisted on exclusivity. And, her words, not mine, she no longer found me attractive. The letter got uglier. She warned that if I pursued a divorce, she would demand half my paycheck, my retirement benefits, and even child support for her children with him. Near the end, she wrote that she and Jasper had taken the cruise early, using the tickets I had bought. She admitted they had blocked my number to avoid any calls or texts. To twist the knife further, they planned to send me pictures and videos from the trip, just to show me what I was missing. Her letter ended abruptly, but the damage was done. It felt like she had ripped my chest open and laughed as she walked away. She ended the letter by saying she had to go because the taxi was waiting to take her to meet Jasper at the seaport. They wanted a head start on their cruise. She promised to contact me when they got back so I could pick her up. Pick her. The letter claimed she regretted how I'd feel about all this but insisted this was how things had to be now. It was signed, your friend, Alara. I sat there in stunned silence, the letter slipping from my hands. Friend? What kind of friend does something like this? With friends like Alara, who the hell needed enemies? Sure, things had felt off over the past few months, but I chalked it up to my crazy schedule. That's why I splurged on the cruise in the first place, to reconnect, to remind her how much I cared. But now, the more I thought about that letter, the angrier I got. I ripped my wedding ring off my finger and hurled it across the room. It clinked against the wall and fell somewhere under the couch. To hell with her and her delusional plans. If she thought I'd just roll over and accept this, she was out of her mind. I glanced at the clock. It was 3 a.m. 5 hours until my shift at the day job. I knew I wasn't going to get much sleep. Even as I lay on the couch, hugging a pillow and pulling an old Afghan over me, my mind kept drifting to images of her with Jasper. Our cruise turned into their romantic getaway. Eventually, exhaustion took over and I passed out. When I woke up the next morning, the dull ache of reality hit me like a sledgehammer. I stared at the ceiling for a moment, disoriented, until the events of the night before came flooding back. I reached for my phone, hoping, praying, for some kind of message that would make this all a bad dream. Nothing. Dragging myself to the bathroom, I showered and threw on some clothes, grabbing a quick cup of coffee before heading out. I told myself I'd leave my personal problems at the door, but it was easier said than done. All day at work, the smallest complaints from customers felt like nails on a chalkboard. By lunchtime, I could tell my coworkers were noticing my foul mood. And sure enough, after lunch, my supervisor, Ophelia, called me into her office. The moment she motioned for me to shut the door, I knew this wasn't going to be a casual chat. She leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. "Spencer, is everything okay at home?" she asked, her brow furrowed with genuine concern. She even suggested that maybe it was time to quit the fast food job, considering I was already stretched thin between 2 gigs. I hesitated but decided to open up. Ophelia had always been understanding in the past, and at that moment, I needed someone to talk to. I pulled the crumpled letter out of my bag and handed it to her. She read it in silence, her expression shifting between disbelief and anger as she reached the end. Shaking her head, she placed the letter on her desk. "I'm so sorry, Spencer. No one deserves this." Her tone was gentle but professional as she said, "I understand you're going through a lot, but we need you to have your head in the game here. Some of the team mentioned you've been short-tempered today, and, well, now I see why." I felt a mix of shame and gratitude as she continued. "You've got vacation time coming up next week, right? How about this, you take the rest of the day off with comp time. Clear your head. If you need help or someone to talk to, I can connect you with a counselor through our Employee Resources program." She wasn't judging me, and somehow that made it all feel even heavier. I nodded, thanked her, and left the office, unsure of what to do next. Ophelia handed me a slip of paper with a name and number on it. "This is the attorney I used during my divorce, Lorelei Kensington. She's sharp and knows how to handle messy situations like this. Give her a call. Trust me. She helped me a lot." I stared at the paper, overwhelmed but grateful. "Thank you, Ophelia. I really mean it." She gave me a warm, encouraging smile. "Take the next week to get things sorted out and come back with a clear mind. And remember," she added with a light chuckle, "there are plenty of fish in the sea." I managed a weak smile and nodded. "I hear you, Ophelia. Thanks again." After grabbing my things and letting my cubicle mate know I'd be out for a bit, I headed to my car. Sitting in the driver's seat, I pulled out the note and dialed the number. A receptionist at Kensington and Beto Law offices answered. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "Yes, hi. I'd like to speak with Lorelei Kensington. Ophelia Nightingale recommended her. Let me check her schedule. Please hold." A couple of minutes later, the receptionist returned. "Miss Kensington is in court this afternoon, but she has an opening at 4 p.m. Does that work for you?" "That's perfect," I replied. After jotting down the address, I thanked her and hung up. With time to kill before the appointment, I decided to swing by the travel agency where Alara worked. I hoped I could intercept her and maybe get a refund for the cruise. When I walked into the agency, 4 women glanced up from their desks. Their looks were odd, almost knowing. I approached the receptionist, Jenna, who greeted me with a polite smile. "Hi, Jenna," I began. "I'm here to see Alara." Jenna hesitated, glancing around the office. "She's not in today," she said carefully. Then she reached for a large envelope on the desk and slid it toward me. "She asked me to give you this if you came by." I stared at the envelope, already dreading what might be inside. The other women were watching me, smirking in a way that made my skin crawl. Grimly, I opened it. The first thing that hit me was the scent. Alara's perfume mixed with something off. I peered inside and froze. There, folded neatly, was a soaking wet pair of Alara's underwear. My stomach churned with disgust as I pulled them out using a pencil. Beneath them were her wedding rings, coated in some kind of white, gooey substance. Unmistakably jasper. I could barely process what I was seeing. At the bottom of the envelope was a USB thumb drive. Revolted, I turned to Jenna. "What the hell is this?" She didn't answer. She just smirked and avoided my eyes, as did the other women. My patience snapped. "Do you all think this is funny?" I demanded. Jenna looked flustered, finally glancing up. "The drive has pictures and videos from the Bon Voyage party we threw for Alara and Jasper yesterday. She thought you'd, enjoy them." My blood boiled as I tried to keep my composure. Before I could say anything, an older woman stepped out from the back office. She leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed, watching me like she'd been expecting this scene. "She and Jasper already left," the woman said matter-of-factly. "We all threw them a little send-off yesterday." She smirked, her tone dripping with condescension. "Everyone here supports their decision. By the way." I stood there, gripping the envelope so tightly I thought it might tear. My throat burned with rage, but I swallowed it down. These people weren't worth it. Without another word, I turned on my heel and walked out. The older woman crossed her arms, leaning against the wall as she said, "The agency was aware of their relationship. Yes, when I asked if they actually approved of it, she shrugged with indifference. What do you want from us?" she asked flatly. "I want a refund," I said, trying to keep my tone calm despite my rising frustration. "I paid for that cruise, and I'm not just letting it go. I deserve my money back." She raised an eyebrow. "Well, you don't have the tickets, do you? And they're non-refundable. Besides, it was nice of you to let Alara switch one ticket into Jasper's name." I blinked at her in disbelief. "I didn't let her do anything. What she did was fraud, and I'm not letting this slide." She shrugged again, clearly unimpressed. "That's between you and Alara. But you're not getting your money back." The frustration boiled over. "Fine. If that's the way you want it, I'll see you in court. I'll sue this agency and everyone involved." As I turned to leave, Jenna called out, her tone softer now. "Wait. Look. I'm sorry about all of this." She sighed and walked closer, avoiding eye contact. "Alara told us you were fine with everything, that you knew about the changes and approved of her plans." I shook my head. "She lied. And now you're all complicit in it." Jenna hesitated, then said something that made my stomach churn. "Why not just let her enjoy the cruise? There'll be other chances for you." I stared at her, incredulous. "Are you married?" I asked sharply. Her expression faltered. "No, I'm not." "Well, I hope you never experience this," I said bitterly. "Because being betrayed by someone you love, someone who promised to love you back, it's devastating. But if you ever do, maybe you'll think back to this moment and understand how it feels." Jenna looked down, awkwardly fiddling with the papers on her desk. I wasn't finished. "Tell Alara something for me." I leaned closer, my voice low and cold. "Tell her I despise her. I never want to see her again. And I hope she spends the rest of her life alone." Jenna's eyes widened, and the smirks on the other women's faces vanished. Without waiting for a response, I turned and stormed out of the office. With a couple of hours to kill before my appointment with Lorelai, I parked at a shady spot in a nearby park. I reclined my seat, set an alarm on my phone, and closed my eyes. As I drifted off, my mind churned with thoughts of how unfair all of this was. Was there any justice left in the world? The nap gave me some relief, but when I woke up, my neck was stiff, and my head was pounding. I sipped the lukewarm coffee from earlier, grimacing at the taste, and started the car. When I reached Lorelai Kensington's office, I parked and checked myself in the rearview mirror. I looked awful, worn out, with dark circles under my eyes. I tried to smooth down my hair and grabbed the envelope from Jenna before heading inside. The office was modern and clean with a warm atmosphere. The receptionist, a friendly blonde woman, greeted me with a smile. "You must be Spencer. Lorelai is expecting you. Please have a seat. Can I get you some coffee?" "Yes, please," I replied, grateful for the offer. After a few minutes, she returned with a fresh cup of coffee. I took a sip, savoring the warmth, and before long, she motioned for me to follow her. She led me into a spacious office with tall windows. Behind the desk stood Lorelai Kensington. She was older than me, probably in her late 40s or early 50s, but she was strikingly attractive, with an air of confidence that instantly put me at ease. She extended her hand. "Spencer? I'm Lorelai. Please, come in." I shook her hand. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." "Of course. Have a seat," she said warmly, motioning to the chair across from her desk. As I sat down, I introduced myself. "You can call me Spencer," she smiled. "And you can call me Lorelai." She leaned forward slightly, her expression serious but kind. "So, Spencer, tell me, what brings you here today?" I took a deep breath. "I need a divorce," I said, my voice steady despite the weight of the words. Lorelai tilted her head, her eyes sharp with curiosity. "May I ask why?" I slid the letter across the desk. "Because my wife is cheating on me." I handed Lorelai the letter Alara had left me. She read it in silence, her frown deepening as she went through each line. When she finished, she placed it back on the desk, shaking her head. "Well," she said with a sigh, That's certainly something. What's in the envelope? I hesitated before passing it over. You might want to brace yourself. The contents are unpleasant. Curious. She opened it, her face immediately twisting in disgust as the odor hit her. She quickly closed it and slid it back toward me. That's vile, she muttered. I completely understand why you want a divorce. She folded her hands on the desk and looked at me. Let's talk about your goals. What do you want to achieve here? I leaned forward, my tone resolute. I want Alara to face consequences for what she's done. And I want to go after the travel agency for defrauding me out of over $2,000. That money was for our cruise. Lorelei nodded but gave me a measured look. I understand your frustration, but you should know that the family court system in this state focuses more on dividing finances than serving justice. I wish it weren't the case, but that's the reality we're dealing with. She paused, then added, by the way, I appreciate Ophelia referring you to me. It sounds like she really cares about your well-being. I nodded. She's been great. Thankfully, we don't have kids, so at least that part's simple. That does make things easier, Lorelei agreed. Any property to divide? We're renting a one-bedroom apartment and saving for a house, I explained. She jotted that down. Good. Not having property simplifies things further. What about Alara's income? She makes about the same as my base pay. $18 an hour, I said. Lorelei leaned back slightly, her expression thoughtful. Okay. Here's the thing, you might still be required to provide financial support for her for a couple of years, unless she remarries. And as for your savings and retirement accounts, they'll likely be split. That's ridiculous, I snapped, frustrated. She's the one who cheated. She's the one who lied. How is any of this fair? She held up a hand gently. I understand how unfair it feels, but our state has no-fault divorce laws. That means infidelity can't be used as a legal reason for the divorce. However, she added, it could be a bargaining chip during negotiations. I sat back, exhaling heavily. Counseling isn't even on the table for me. I can't see past the betrayal. Understood, she said, nodding. But just so you know, the court might order counseling anyway. It doesn't mean reconciliation. It's more about closure and moving forward. I hesitated before asking something that had been nagging at me. What if she tries to bring Jasper into the apartment? Do I have any say in that? Lorelei raised an eyebrow. Is Alara's name on the lease? Yeah, it is, I admitted. In that case, unless there are credible threats of damage or illegal activity, you can't stop her from inviting people over. I clenched my fists trying to stay calm. Is there any justice in this process? Lorelei gave me a small, knowing smile. Divorce is rarely about justice, Spencer. It's about survival. You endure it, get through it, and come out the other side. I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly at her honesty. She continued, now, Alara might have a change of heart when she gets back. It's not uncommon for people in situations like hers to reconsider the marriage. Would you be open to a legal separation instead of an immediate divorce? It's a way to give both of you time to cool off and decide how to proceed. I shook my head. I don't think I can do that. She nodded, respecting my decision. Fair enough. One more thing about your second job. You're making good money, but earning more could lead to increased financial obligations in the divorce. If you can afford to let it go, it might be worth considering. I sighed, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I've been burning myself out trying to save for our future. A future she threw away. Lorelei placed a hand on her notepad. Let's talk about the cruise refund. There are ways we can address that, but it may require some legal pressure on the agency. We spent the next half hour discussing the details. Lorelei took notes, asked questions, and helped me prioritize the steps I needed to take. By the end of our conversation, she handed me a checklist of tasks. Most of it involved handling finances, like freezing joint accounts and safeguarding my retirement savings. I stood, shaking her hand. Thanks, Lorelei. I appreciate your help. Of course, she said with a reassuring smile. We'll get through this. On my way out, I stopped at the front desk to leave a retainer payment. As I walked out of the building, checklist in hand, I still felt the weight of everything on my shoulders. But for the first time, I also felt a sliver of hope. I felt awful about everything, but at least I was taking steps to fix it. The thought of quitting my second job crossed my mind again. It was draining me, and honestly, with everything going on, I needed the mental break. I decided I'd talk to the manager tomorrow and put in my notice. On my way home, I stopped at the bank to make the changes Lorelei had suggested. First, I paid off the joint credit card that Alara had been using and canceled it on the spot. Then, I moved half the money from our joint accounts into a separate account I'd created for my bonuses and commissions. Alara didn't have access to that account, and at least I could keep it safe there. I had originally planned to use that money for a house, but those dreams were long gone. When I got home, I grabbed the mail from the box and warmed up some leftover meatloaf Alara had made earlier in the week. She had a knack for making big meals and freezing portions for later, which I'd always appreciated until now. Still, the meatloaf was good, and I wasn't about to waste it. As I sat down to eat, I started sorting through the mail. Most of it was junk, advertisements, credit card offers, and envelopes addressed to occupant or resident, but one piece stood out. It was a handwritten invitation, addressed to me personally, with elegant calligraphy. I almost tossed it with the rest, but curiosity got the better of me. Opening it, I found an invitation to a private art showing at something called the Valtieri Gallery. The event was set for 9:30 a.m. sharp. I wasn't sure what to make of it. Maybe Alara had signed me up for it? She was always trying to get me interested in art and culture, but with my schedule, I never had time for that kind of thing. Still, as I stared at the invitation, I felt this strange pull to attend. Don't ask me why, I couldn't explain it. I stuck the invitation to the refrigerator door with a magnet, deciding I'd go. If nothing else, it might be a distraction from all the chaos in my life. After dinner, I finally worked up the nerve to deal with the envelope Jenna had given me. I slipped on a pair of latex gloves, bracing myself for the unpleasant smell. Pulling out the contents, I tried not to gag. Alara's underwear was still damp, and nestled in the wettest part of the fabric was her wedding ring. I grabbed a plastic sandwich bag and carefully sealed it inside, making sure the odor couldn't escape. Then I wiped down the USB drive with disinfectant wipes, just to be cautious, given the disgusting circumstances. Setting up my laptop, I inserted the drive with a deep sense of dread. I wasn't sure what I was about to see, but I knew it wouldn't be good. The folder on the drive contained dozens of photos, mostly of Alara with a man I assumed was Jasper. They were at some kind of party surrounded by her office friends. In the pictures, Jasper's hands were all over her, and her coworkers, including her supervisor, were smiling and laughing like this was the most normal thing in the world. The photos got worse. In one, Alara was undressed, hunched over a toilet bowl while two of her coworkers stood nearby. One of them was Jenna, holding Alara's underwear, the same pair I just sealed in a bag. The wedding rings were visible in Jenna's hand, like some kind of sick joke. I slammed the laptop shut, feeling sick to my stomach. What kind of people were these? The last photo hit me like a punch to the gut. Alara, still undressed, waved at the camera with that same smile I used to love. Beneath her were her underwear and wedding rings, the ones I had placed on her finger nearly 5 years ago when I promised her my life. How could she do this to me? I had never felt so humiliated, so disrespected. A wave of hatred surged through me, so strong it felt like my chest might explode. Trying to keep myself from smashing the laptop, I exited the folder. But there was more. Another folder contained several video files. My stomach churned as I hesitated. Finally, I clicked on the first video, determined to focus on what they were saying rather than what they were doing. The last video gutted me. Alara adjusted herself over the toilet bowl while others handed her the underwear. She took off her rings and passed them to Jenna and another coworker, who held the underwear beneath her like they were participating in some twisted ritual. An older woman stepped forward and carefully placed the rings on the garment to keep them from falling into the toilet. Then Jasper's voice rang out, smug and taunting. "Are you ready?" Alara looked directly into the camera. Her face was calm, almost joyful. "I'm ready," she said. Then she added, without a flicker of hesitation, her intention to urinate on the rings. She openly expressed her contempt for me and our marriage. My blood ran cold. The video showed her directing one of the women to bring an envelope containing photos and videos, ensuring it would reach me if I came by the next day. Jenna agreed. Alara waved at the camera one last time, smiling as if she were saying goodbye to an old friend. Everyone in the room joined her, Jasper included, turning to the camera to make one final statement. "Don't worry," he sneered. "I'll take good care of her in your absence. And thanks for footing the bill." The video cut off, leaving me nauseated. I'm not a violent man. I've never raised my hand to anyone, let alone someone I loved. But at that moment, I wanted to destroy them all with my bare hands. My head dropped into my hands, shaking from the anger coursing through me. I couldn't even cry. I was too furious, too betrayed. I couldn't understand why she would do this to me. I had never cheated, never hurt her, never done anything but work my tail off to build a good life for us. If she had just told me I was working too much, I would have cut back in a heartbeat. But she didn't. She went behind my back and ruined everything. A new thought struck me. I opened my laptop and pulled up the travel agency's website. It was part of a much larger organization headquartered in New York, with offices all over the country. I found the email addresses for the CEO and the chairman of the board. Without a second thought, I drafted an email attaching screenshots and videos from the USB drive. I threatened legal action, clearly laying out how their employees, including Alara, had defrauded me and humiliated me beyond belief. With a deep breath, I hit send. When I looked around the living room, I noticed the pictures of Alara and me scattered across the walls and tables. I lost it, ripping each one down. I tore her face out of every single one. The sound of the frames cracking, the glass shattering. It felt good, cathartic even. I was hunting for something else to destroy when the doorbell rang. I froze. Who the hell could that be? Peering through the peephole, I saw Jenna standing there with another woman from Alara's office. Her face was familiar, but I couldn't remember her name at the moment. I opened the door, glaring at them. "What do you want?" I growled. They both jumped back, clearly startled. Jenna held up her hands. "Please, Spencer. We just need to talk." I crossed my arms, refusing to step aside. "Talk about what? Why would I want to hear anything you have to say?" The other woman chimed in. "We're here to explain some things. Can we please come inside?" Still suspicious, I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder. Holding it up so they could see, I said, "Fine. But I'm recording this." They nodded, looking uneasy. I stepped aside and motioned for them to come in. Sitting down on the couch, I pointed to the chairs across from me. "Start talking," I demanded. "Why are you here?" When they asked for something to drink, I shook my head. "No. Just get to the point so you can leave." Jenna exchanged a nervous glance with the other woman before speaking. "I talked to Alara earlier. She's really upset about all of this." I leaned back in my chair, my tone cold. "Oh, is she? Well, I'm devastated. But hey, maybe you two can make it up to me by doing something drastic. Got any ideas?" They both stared at me, stunned. Jenna finally broke the silence. "You can't mean that," she said, her voice trembling. "She's your wife." Without a word, I handed her the letter Alara had left for me. Jenna's eyes widened as she read it, her face shifting between shock and guilt. She handed it back, stammering, I'm so sorry, Spencer." I crossed my arms. "Sorry? You were complicit in this. I saw the videos. You laughed with her. You helped her. You call that being sorry?" Jenna's shoulders slumped, and her tone softened. "Alara told us you were fine with everything. We had no idea." I cut her off. "Save it. I don't buy it. And I don't care anymore. Time for you to leave." The two women stood, heading for the door. But just as they reached it, Jenna hesitated. She turned back, nervously biting her lip. "Maybe I could help you get over this," she said quietly. I laughed bitterly. "Help me? You? After everything I've seen? I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. Just leave. And don't come back." Her face flushed red as she nodded, then quickly stepped out the door with the other woman. I locked the door behind them, leaning against it for a moment. A mix of rage and sorrow surged through me, leaving me feeling hollow. I needed something, anything, to numb the pain. Grabbing my keys, I drove to the convenience store on the corner and bought a 6-pack of beer and a couple of packs of cigarettes. I hadn't smoked or had a drink since we got married. Alara had convinced me to quit, and I'd done it for her. But tonight, I didn't care anymore. Back at home, I sat out on the balcony, cracking open a beer and lighting up a cigarette. The alcohol burned on the way down, and the smoke hit my lungs like a punch, but it dulled the edges of my anger. I drank and smoked, one after another, trying to drown out the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Eventually, I stumbled back inside, collapsing onto the bed. The next morning, I woke up groggy and disoriented. My head pounded, my mouth tasted like an ashtray, and the sunlight streaming through the window felt like it was mocking me. Dragging myself out of bed, I showered, brushed the bitterness out of my mouth and got dressed. Couldn't wallow all day. It was time to start facing the mess head-on. First stop, the fast food joint. I walked in, determined to quit my second job. Steve, my manager, was a good guy, and when I explained what was going on, he shook his head sympathetically. "Man, that's rough. Don't worry about it. I'll find someone to cover your shifts." "Thanks, Steve," I said. As I walked out, I felt a little lighter, like I'd taken a small step toward reclaiming my life. Next, I headed to the law office of Kensington and Beto. The receptionist greeted me warmly and led me to the conference room, where Lorelei was already waiting, flipping through some papers. "Good to see you, Spencer," she said with a reassuring smile, motioning for me to sit. "I've looked over everything you gave me, and I've got a plan." Her confidence was contagious. For the first time since Alara's betrayal, I felt a glimmer of hope. Lorelei laid out the steps we'd take for the divorce and the complaint against the travel agency. She explained everything clearly, answering my questions and promising to keep me updated every step of the way. When our meeting ended, I shook her hand and left the office feeling a strange mix of relief and anger. The road ahead was going to be tough, but at least I wasn't alone anymore. As I drove home, my mind wandered to the invitation I'd found the night before, the one for the private art showing at the Valtieri Gallery. On a whim, I decided to stop by. The invitation had been on my mind, and I figured a distraction might do me some good. The gallery was small but elegant, with an atmosphere that immediately felt calming. The walls were lined with different works of art, and the soft hum of conversation mixed with gentle background music. As I stepped inside, a woman with dark hair and an air of calm approached me. "Welcome to Valtieri Gallery. I'm Lydia Valtieri. How can I help you today?" I handed her the invitation. "I got this yesterday and thought I'd check it out." Lydia smiled warmly. "Ah yes, we're having a private showing today. Please, follow me." She led me to a quiet room in the back where several pieces of art were displayed. The ambience was soothing, with soft music playing faintly in the background. As I wandered around the room, I started to feel a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in weeks. One particular painting caught my eye, a vibrant abstract piece filled with energy and motion, as though it were alive. "That's one of my favorites," Lydia said, appearing beside me. "It's called Rebirth." "Incredible," I admitted. "I can't explain it, but it speaks to me." Lydia nodded knowingly. "Art has a way of doing that. Sometimes it says what we can't." We ended up talking for a while. I opened up about some of what I'd been going through, and Lydia listened without judgment, offering a sympathetic ear. By the time I left the gallery, I felt a bit lighter, as though some of the weight on my shoulders had lifted. In the weeks that followed, I settled into a new routine. My mornings were spent at my customer service job, and my evenings were a mix of meetings with Lorelei, therapy sessions, and visits to the Valtieri Gallery. Lydia and I became friends, and I found her presence comforting. She had a way of making the world seem just a little less harsh. One evening, as I was leaving the gallery, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Lorelei. "Call me. I have news." My heart raced as I dialed her number. "Spencer, I've got an update," she said when she picked up. "Alara received the divorce papers, and," I asked, bracing myself. "She's not happy about it, no surprise there. But there's something else you need to know." "What is it?" "Jasper has a criminal record. Fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. It's all documented. I froze, the weight of her words sinking in. I had always suspected Jasper was bad news, but this confirmed it. What does this mean for me? It strengthens our case, Lorelei explained. We can argue that Alara's association with him puts her in a bad position, especially since she's been using your money to fund their lifestyle. This could have a significant impact on asset division and alimony. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Thank you, Lorelei. I really appreciate everything you're doing. After the call, I felt more determined than ever. Alara and Jasper's betrayal had cut deeply, but now I had a chance to fight back. I drove home with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever came next. As the days turned into weeks, I began to feel more at ease with my new routine. Each visit to the Valtieri Gallery became a welcome respite from the chaos that had taken over my life. Lydia's calming presence and our conversations often left me feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. One morning, I woke up to an email from Lorelei. She had attached some documents for me to review and sign. The divorce proceedings were moving faster than I had expected. The discovery of Jasper's criminal record had tipped the scales in my favor, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had the upper hand. After signing the final documents and sending them back to Lorelei, I felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. It was finally happening. I was reclaiming my life. After work, I decided to stop by the gallery. Lydia greeted me with her usual warm smile. "Spencer, it's good to see you. How are things?" "Better, actually," I replied. "Lorelei says the divorce is moving along quickly. Jasper's criminal record really helped." Lydia's eyes softened with genuine concern. "I'm glad to hear that. You deserve some good news." We spent the next hour talking about everything and nothing. With Lydia, it was always easy to lose track of time. As I was about to leave, she handed me a small wrapped package. "What's this?" I asked, surprised. "Just a little something for you," she said with a smile. "Open it when you get home." Curiosity piqued. I thanked her and headed back to my apartment. Once inside, I carefully unwrapped the package. Inside was a beautifully framed photograph of the rebirth painting. Attached to it was a note in Lydia's elegant handwriting, a reminder that every end is a new beginning. "Lydia." I stared at the photo and the note, feeling warmth spread through me. Lydia's kindness was a beacon in the storm of my life. I placed the framed photo on my nightstand, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I slept peacefully. The following week, my phone buzzed with another call from Lorelei. "Spencer, we've got a court date," she announced. "It's in 2 weeks. Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied. "Thank you, Lorelei. I couldn't have done this without you." "You're welcome, Spencer," she said. "Stay strong, and we'll get through this." In the days leading up to the court date, I focused on work and continued my visits to the gallery. Lydia and I had become close friends, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations more and more. She had a way of making even the darkest days seem a little brighter. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. I dressed in my best suit, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. Lorelei met me at the courthouse, her calm and confident presence immediately putting me at ease. The hearing was intense. Alara and Jasper showed up looking smug and self-assured, but as Lorelei presented our case, their confidence started to crack. She highlighted Jasper's criminal history and Alara's blatant betrayal, painting a clear picture of their reckless behavior. The judge's expressions shifted several times, sympathetic toward my situation and critical of theirs. After what felt like an eternity, the judge ruled in my favor. The divorce was granted, and I was awarded the majority of our shared assets. Alara and Jasper were left to face the consequences of their actions. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt an enormous weight lift off my shoulders. Lorelei congratulated me, reminding me to stay in touch. As I drove home, I realized that for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel so uncertain. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was moving forward. This was the start of a new chapter in my life. That evening, I went to the gallery to see Lydia. She was waiting for me, her warm smile instantly putting me at ease. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice filled with genuine concern. "It's over," I replied, feeling relief wash over me like a tide. The judge ruled in my favor. A broad smile spread across Lydia's face. "I'm so happy for you, Spencer." She stepped forward and hugged me. "You deserve this fresh start." As we stood there, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, a sense of hope. Lydia had been my rock through this entire ordeal, a source of encouragement and support when I needed it most. I realized just how much she meant to me. "Lydia," I began, taking a deep breath, "would you like to have dinner with me sometime? I mean, as more than friends?" Her eyes sparkled with surprise and something that looked a lot like happiness. "I'd love that, Spencer." In that moment, I knew my life was finally moving in the right direction. With Lydia by my side and the past firmly behind me, I felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. The weeks after the court hearing were a whirlwind of change. I focused on rebuilding my life, and Lydia quickly became a bigger part of it. Our friendship blossomed into something more, and for the first time in years, I felt genuinely happy. One evening, as I was settling into my new normal, I received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Important information. Please read." It was from Jenna, Alara's former colleague at the travel agency. Intrigued, I clicked it open. "Spencer, I hope you're doing well. I've been feeling guilty about everything that happened, and I want to make things right. Attached is a video from the night of the Bon Voyage party. It might be useful. Sincerely, Jenna." My heart raced as I opened the attachment. The video was damning. It showed Alara and Jasper in a compromising position, both clearly intoxicated. They were bragging openly, Jasper laughing about his various criminal exploits while Alara admitted to embezzling money from the travel agency to fund their escapades. This was the break I needed. I immediately forwarded the video to Lorelai and called her to explain. She agreed that this could open up new legal avenues, not just for additional financial restitution, but also potential criminal charges against Alara and Jasper. 2 days later, I met with Lorelai in her office to discuss our next steps. We decided to send the video to the authorities as well as the travel agency's head office. The satisfaction I felt in that moment was overwhelming. Justice was finally on its way. The fallout from the video was swift. The travel agency fired Alara and pressed charges against both her and Jasper for embezzlement. The police launched an investigation into Jasper's other criminal activities, leading to multiple arrests and a significant media scandal. Meanwhile, my relationship with Lydia continued to grow. We spent more time together, building something real and solid. She became not just my partner but my closest confidant, helping me move forward one step at a time. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Lydia and I spent more and more time together, and she became my anchor amidst the chaos. Her unwavering support and love made me feel stronger than ever. One evening, we were having dinner at my apartment when my phone buzzed with a news alert. Curious, I picked it up and opened the notification. The headline made my heart race. Local couple arrested in massive fraud and embezzlement scandal. The article detailed Alara and Jasper's arrests, the charges against them, and key evidence from the video Jenna had provided. Their smug faces were now plastered all over the news, their downfall public and humiliating. Lydia looked at me, concern in her eyes. "How do you feel?" she asked softly. I took a deep breath and let the weight of the moment settle. Vindicated, I said finally. They're finally facing the consequences of their actions. As the days went on, the scandal grew. Alara and Jasper's trial became a media sensation, the courtroom packed with reporters and cameras. I attended, determined to see it through. Watching as they were both found guilty on multiple counts was surreal. Alara's tearful pleas for leniency fell on deaf ears, and the judge sentenced both her and Jasper to significant prison time. The satisfaction I felt watching justice served was a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief because they could no longer hurt anyone else. Emptiness because it was the final nail in the coffin of a life I had once believed in. But it also marked the moment I was truly able to let go and move forward. A year later, Lydia and I stood side by side at the grand opening of the new wing of the Valtieri Gallery. It was a dream come true for both of us. She had asked me to join her as a partner, blending our strengths and passions into something bigger than either of us could have achieved alone. As we mingled with the guests, Lydia squeezed my hand and looked at me with pride. "You've come a long way, Spencer. I'm so proud of you." I smiled at her, my heart full. "Thanks to you," I said, kissing her cheek. "I couldn't have done it without you." Just then, I noticed Jenna among the crowd, her presence unexpected but welcome. She approached us with a tentative smile. "Spencer, Lydia," she said warmly. "I'm so glad I could make it." "Jenna," I replied, sincerity in my voice. "Thank you for everything. Your decision to send that video changed everything." Jenna smiled, relief evident in her eyes. "I'm just glad I could help. You deserve happiness, Spencer." As the evening unfolded, I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me. The past was truly behind me, its weight lifted. I stood there surrounded by art, laughter, and love, a future filled with possibilities stretching out ahead of me. I glanced at Lydia, who was chatting with a guest, her smile lighting up the room. In that moment, I knew that together we could face whatever came our way. This was our new beginning, a life built on love, passion, and resilience.